Hello, everyone. Welcome to Borderlines Film Festival. My name is Isabel Moir. I'm a film programmer at the Independent Cinema Office. And thank you for staying for the Q&A this evening. I'm really happy that Director Cathy Brady will be joining us to talk about her directorial debut, Wildfire. For those of you watching at home, there is an option to submit any questions that you may have for Cathy. You'll see at the bottom of the tool panel that says Q&A, so you can just type your question if you have one throughout our conversation. So I'll start the conversation with a few questions and we'll leave plenty of time so you can ask anything then. Congratulations on the film, Cathy, and thank you for joining us and sharing your film with the audience at Borderlines Film Festival. Firstly, I just wanted to ask, where did this film start? Like, what was the inspiration for starting this film?
Absolutely. Well, firstly, I want to say a huge thanks to Borderline Film Festival and to yourself at this time of night, and to everyone who's joined us for a little chat at 10 o'clock at night. So thank you. And where did the inspiration start? Well, unlike most films, I actually started with the cast. I was very fortunate to work with Nora Jane Noon on 2 shorts, and then Nika McGuigan on a TV series called Can't Cook, Won't Cook. And there was something absolutely fierce, challenging, exciting, and vulnerable about the things that they were able to go to as actors, and this sense of range that they had. And I thought, what would happen if I put these 2 actors in a room together? And that's literally, I just sat back and watched it, and I knew I had something. So that for me was like the starting point. And we chatted back and forth for a few weeks. I was crazy about them. I wanted to know how they worked and what excited them. And I said to them, did they know about the Madness in the Fastlane documentary? And they didn't. So I said to them, it's quite a striking story about 2 identical sisters who had a shared psychosis. And they were found walking along the middle of the M6 in England. Both of them threw themselves onto oncoming traffic and survived with remarkable fury. And it was, I showed them the clip, and for us, it was such an existential thing to watch. And we wanted to tell a story where somehow we would get under the skin of that and be able to walk in the shoes of these characters and understand how a bond between 2 sisters would be so intense, so strong, so passionate that they would literally, put themselves in such danger. And that really became a starting point for us. And because I knew very little about psychosis and a shared psychosis, we grounded it in research. So the Wellcome Trust came on board very early. And so we were building fact and fiction hand in hand. And I decided to set it back in Borderland, Northern Ireland, where I'm from. And this is 6 years ago, before there was any talk of Brexit. So as we were making the film, it organically started to shift. And fact was informing fiction. It became a really fascinating process, and developing the 2 characters specifically for the 2 girls.
That's such an interesting way to approach this project. They give just such extraordinary performances. Can I talk a little bit, would you like to talk a bit more about how they kind of work together? Like, for example, was it scripted before or was it improvised?
Well, it's I guess kind of starting with the actors first. It was a gut thing. So really what I was working with was their gut instinct, their physicality, their own curiosities about characters and psychology. So we started to find a kind of a middle ground where we could all sort of start to communicate ideas. So that can be quite tricky to do. So, one of the things that I like to do is I like to use music, because it's a way of speaking very universal without getting into details. So one of the first workshops we did without script was we did a movement and dance workshop. And the first song I played was Patti Smith's Horses. Now, it's quite a primal like song. It's about 9 minutes long, but there's a really interesting ebb and flow in terms of the energy of that song. And I said to the girls, like, I just want you to move to the energy of this song. And then at certain points, I was getting them to mirror each other's energy. And something really fascinating happened, because they were like 2 sisters were fighting for the higher status. And something very dynamic happened. And then when they just allowed themselves to kind of connect just honestly with each other, something really special opened up. And I sat back and I was like, this dance, whatever this is, this needs to be in the film. So it's very similar to what they do in the bar is what they did in their very first physicality workshop 6 years ago. So, you know, we were building, as I was saying, fact. So one of the big facts that was informing things for us was with psychosis, the past becomes present. So we realized how much backstory would be crucial, how much the two actors needed to know about backstory. But true to like a character, I didn't want them to have control of their backstory. So there was certain information that I was feeding through. But when it came to their own characters' destinies, they were working with me. So for example, we knew that Kelly wanted to elope. She wanted to get away from this family because she felt misunderstood. So we wanted to create a sense of mystery around her, but we needed to know the details of that mystery, like that she would have stayed in a squat, that she would have been traveling, that she would have been quite homeless. And we knew Lauren that she was kind of repressing a lot of stuff. So she was making life as simple and compact as she could, even though it was beginning to suffocate her. And then there were story elements about, you know, the mother story, how that was kind of reverberating in their present, and with the likes of their environment and the community, how that became an echo chamber. So it was a case of kind of gathering all these ideas, and then I would have done a mixture of script work, and then from that script work I would have done workshops where I was like kind of finely tuning some of those scenes. So I do think that's why the film has a different quality. It's a little bit more organic, and I think it's a film that asks you to lean in and observe the behavior. You know, it's very much about character and behavior and how people tick, and you know, I think it's all to do with how it was constructed differently.
They have such this unique bond that kind of feels very real, how real sisters
Well,
would
you
do
know,
it. So
I think it's interesting that you're saying that, because I think what's very different about workshopping with actors, it's a completely different process to rehearsal. When you're workshopping, you're actually demanding a lot from an actor, because you're asking them to give 100% commitment to a choice. So because you're trying to, you know, you're cracking open ideas and scenes and you're testing out ideas. So they can't hold back 90% because they want to keep that for the day, you know. So when you're building this over 5 years, you're workshopping it, you know, when they commit to a true choice, you get really true beats. But if they commit to a half choice, then you don't somehow get the earth of the material. Whereas a rehearsal is, you know, you've got your script, you got your beats, you're getting a sense of the color, and you don't ever want to go fully at it in a rehearsal because you want to keep it for the screen. So the workshop itself was challenging, you know, and when two actors meet each other in that place, you get something that you only get with siblings, where you can fight, you can argue. It's not like actors turning up 2 weeks before a set and they're playing nice, you know, to get the job done. It was very real, and that's what's so exciting about their relationship.
yeah, it feels like there's a real history between them. The film explores this kind of personal trauma within this family, whilst also highlighting the kind of larger community that surrounds them and the kind of past trauma and events that they've also been through. Could you elaborate a bit of how you kind of use this personal and kind of central family and storyline to kind of explore these larger themes?
Like it wasn't something that I intentionally, you know, I wasn't trying to be smart and trying to do something metaphorical where, you know, the sisters represented one part of Ireland and the other. And for me, it started with character. You know, I'm from borderland in Northern Ireland. I was 13 when the Good Friday Agreement happened. So I have a strong memory of what it's like to live through the troubles as a child. But the majority of my life has been in peace. So there was something still about peace. The peace is kind of, it's, you still know there's something slightly under the surface. So, you know, for me, it was like, what does it mean to live in a community where, with the Good Friday Agreement, you know, we have agreed to allow paramilitary people who've committed crimes in the community back into the community for the price of peace. You know, but what is that? How does that impact a community? How does it impact a family? And how does that reverberate? And as I did my research, I heard the term intergenerational trauma, and I'd never come across that before. So that's the idea of a generation that hasn't experienced something firsthand. It's passed on through DNA and behavior, that they're carrying something that they can't fully have the words for and understand. And that's really what I want to show with Kelly and Lauren, by really walking in their shoes, by being personal, that we would understand it more rather than it being a big broad political thing. But I think what happens is the more you drill into something personal, like you drill into the backstory, what happened in the backstory, who is the community, how do they work in that community, you can't help but become political. So it really was always my intention to make a personal character film. But I think somehow the film itself and the events that were happening around us, like Brexit was coming for us. We had no idea that was going to happen. We were like, as we were shooting, we were like, is it going to be a hard border? Is it going to be a soft border? And then, even when we were thinking putting the film out, we were like, now we're going, oh, the protocol, oh, the Good Friday Agreement, everything is still up for grabs. So the film itself it's like becoming alive with the events around it. It's quite a strange thing.
Yeah, it very much feels like your shape, these identities are shaped by not just the family, but the kind of place around them. And so it's a really fascinating portrait. Yeah, because you even open the film with the kind of news footage of the Troubles and also Brexit to kind of help like frame the story. What made you kind of want to begin the film this way and introduce audiences right from the forefront of it?
It was never the intention to begin with. But I think because I had taken so much for granted about what I know the Troubles to be, and also how we got to where we got to with Brexit, that I think I needed to kind of somehow offer up just a moment so that we can understand how devastating it must be to meet those men in the bar. Somehow, if you don't if you're not hit with the truth of that, you're not hit with, say, the footage of the Oma bomb, or like, I was really cautious about using the stuff when we reached out to the Oma victim support, because it's such shocking material. What this happened, and that's what felt important to go. This is fictional characters, but the trauma that exists in this place is real, and I hope the story somehow allows us to get inside that. That's not news articles, that's not shocking footage, that we understand what it's like to live in that time, to try to heal and to move on. But equally, I think for an international audience, it might be helpful to just be reminded and see that it was a civil war that happened.
Yeah, of course. We've just got a couple of questions. I'm just going to have a look at those. We've got a question about your filming locations, where they are exactly.
Well, if there's anything anywhere in particular in terms of locations, let me know. But pretty much shot where I'm from, Newry, right on the border. We were fascinating co-pro because we were a co-production between Ireland and the UK. And I don't even know if films like this are going to be made again in terms of co-productions. But so we needed to have a certain amount shooting in Northern Ireland and a certain part in the Republic of Ireland. So, where I'm from, it's like 15 minutes down the road and you're across the border. So some of it was Dundalk. And then for our amazing cliffs, we shot in Slieve League in Donegal. And I think there might be some Dublin locations, possibly the port, yeah.
Okay, great. I was asking, I wanted to know also about this. There's been a few questions are kind of about the sisters that we've kind of discussed within the pub dance scene. Was there any were there any particular films that you watched to kind of think about how sisters have been portrayed on screen and kind of these dynamics and these relationships? Is there anything you watched in terms of research or preparation for your?
I couldn't quite find anything on sisters, but what I watched Persona. Yeah. I watched Butterfly Kisses, Michael Winterbottom. Jane Campion's film, the one about the sister.
Sweetie.
Yes, Sweetie.
Great film.
Angel at My Table. So I was looking at, I looked at a lot of films in terms of looking at how we get inside a character's mind, because with these characters, with Kelly, that she's in some manic states. So how to get inside that, because it's, they're quite big emotions, and I wanted to be truthful to that because she's not editing herself, and it can feel quite big and expansive moments. And you know, how to show that without making a judgment on the character. You know, I was trying to watch, you know, some stuff that I didn't like, and some stuff that I did like. So that for me was really fascinating. But one of the biggest things for me actually was speaking to two sisters who had a shared psychosis. And because that the facts of that was so detailed and real, that became very interesting touchstones for me. So for example, with a shared psychosis, there's someone who's more active, and so they might be in a much deeper state of psychosis as such. And then you have a secondary who kind of maybe in a codependent relationship will kind of lock into their way of thinking, not to lose them. And so one of the sisters had said to me that she knew the first time there was something not right was when she was walking home and she heard this noise, and she looked around, and it was a wolf. And she ran, and she said she fell, she ran, she kept running. And the time she got home, the minute she put the key in the door, she looked around and it was gone. And she still can't make sense of that. And that's when I realized, okay, I have to be really careful that I'm not trying to make logic sense of everything, because sometimes we do that with story. We tidy everything up. This means that because that means this. And I realized if I'm going to be true to a certain experience, there's going to have to be a certain messiness, a certain kind of subconscious space. And that for me was really important, speaking to people who had experienced it.
I think, yeah, the film really kind of explores these kind of effects that have been through generations, this kind of trauma and also hereditary aspects of mental illness. You've kind of explored this with the red coats and the way that the kind of colors introduced throughout the film and with the costume. Could you talk a bit more about these kind of creative decisions and how you wanted to show this about, you know, actually being direct and telling the audience?
It's like, I mean, it's what I realized is like it was a real balance. It was something that we kept really having to work for in the edit as well. As you know, I was like, I don't want this to be a film that's so loaded with the past that we're constantly cutting back to the past. But you know what I had to sort of sit with in the film is we need to somehow share that past in order to understand what they're thinking. So there was a real balance of that. The mother as an icon, like I felt like, you know, she needed to feel like a Hollywood starlet in this small town. But when you kind of, you know, I wanted her to, you know, because Lauren's version of her mother is quite different from Kelly's. So it's how they view the mother, and, you know, in a more, Kelly might be a bit more idealistic, and whereas Lauren, it's so real, it's actually scary for her because if she adds up all the dots, it terrifies her. So she doesn't want to talk about it. So about treating the mother and how we see the mother, but ultimately it comes to a shared space by the end. So there was trying to figure out how each girl sees the mother, and what then became interesting is Kelly as a character. You know, people are constantly saying she's the spitting image of her mother, she's going on like her mother. So in a way, Lauren can't deny it because her mother is becoming alive again through Kelly's presence. There's something haunting in how Kelly's behaving and how she's looking. So yeah, there was definitely a to and fro. How much backstory do we show?
Yeah, that's really interesting how you also focus particularly on these three women with the sisters and the mother. And was that always kind of the intention of approaching the story from that kind of angle, or with just a kind of female
well, as I said, it's starting with the casting first. You know, I had these two amazing actresses, so I was like, it was like building worlds around them. And you know, we were trying to figure out for a while, like, what was the dynamic? Was the father alive? Was the mother alive? And this is the early days, but it was one of those gut things where you just know that the mother figure is kind of missing in their lives, and there's something quite damaged about that, and there's a missing truth about that. And you know, all therapy says it goes back to the mother anyway. You know what I mean? It's the relationship with the child and the mother. So it made sense, and it made sense that to exclude the father from their lives, and because that was the trauma that was affecting the mother, and that is what impacted her mothering. So that made sense for us as a chain of events.
Yeah. So wish we could all watch this together, but what would you hope audiences are taking away from this film? Like, what are you trying to relate the message to the audience?
My God, I would have loved to have been in the cinema. Like, oh yeah, to
One
experience
day.
it with an audience,
Yeah.
in the physical. Um, you know, it's I hope that, you know, putting the politics aside of the film, you know, I really hope that there's a very human story at the core of this. And you know, for me, what was really important is these two sisters who are, yes, they have gone through hell together, but it ultimately is their bond, and that carries them through, that allows them to face the darkest thing and to accept that. And I think somehow by accepting that and assimilating that, like owning the past, that you become free. And I think there's something in that, and that for me is why the ending is about, you know, it's not about the sisters, you know, driving off the cliff. It's about the sisters being in that car together going, did she love us? Yeah, I think she loved us the best she could. And that is all they have. And you know, that love is what carries them out of the car. And that's the love, the bond that they have, that, you know, that we hope that they will be all right. But when they walk towards the, you know, the police, we just hope that they get the care that they need. And are we capable of giving the care that we need? So I hope it opens dialogues. And yeah, I hope compassion, you know, I think that's the beauty of storytelling, empathy and compassion.
There's so many, yeah, universal themes with kind of grief and family unit and the sisterhood bond. So I'm sure audiences around will definitely connect with it. What are you working on next? Do you have, what's next plans for the film? And do you have any kind of projects you want to share with us?
Well, the next plan for the film is we are releasing it the 18th of June in cinemas. So you know, it'll be fascinating, because I think it's a film that, you know, we worked really, it's about seeing the micro expressions on the screen, you know, all the small details, and we really played with a lot of the dynamics of the sound and the music, which is kind of missing in one sense from the screening that we're having here. So I'm really curious about what happens with that. And I'm working on a project with Carlo Prestadina, who produced Wildfire, and Charles Steele, who also produced Wildfire. And it's set in the Amazon jungle, and it looks at the volunteerism industry, the eco-volunteerism industry. And it's set there. It's, the story is very much finding itself. I would have loved to have gone off and done my first-hand research, but I'm at home like everyone, and trying to figure out what's next, you know. And then there's some other things that are, it's just too early to say, but some very exciting stuff.
Wow, it sounds really exciting, and also a very different project to be working on. That feels very far away from being in lockdown right now. So I'd just like to say thank you so much for sharing this film with us. And we're really excited to see what you do next.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks
for everyone for tuning in.
So if you'd like to vote, we do have audience awards for Borderline. So please do go back to the film page for Wildfire, and you can vote for this film there. And also like to thank, as Cathy said, the film will be released by Modern Films on the 18th of June. So I just want to thank them for letting us do a preview of this film, and do spread the word with your friends or on social media and let them know that this film will be coming out on the 18th. Also, Borderlines Film Festival will be running until Sunday, the 11th of April. So please do check out the program. There's still lots of films to discover in there. If you're looking for more Q&As, we've also got those listed in the program. So you can see tomorrow we've got The Shepherdess and the Seven Songs, as well as Herself, The Reason I Jump, and This Filmmaker's House. So lastly, thank you all for all your questions and for joining us. And thank you, Cathy, again, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you.